Take two, I messed up on the first sentence. What's good, elder brothers? What's good, imperial protectors? How we doing? We rocking with it? Okay, awesome. Good to see you again. Let's go. 11. The Mass Line. The people, and the people alone, are the motive force in the making of world history. The masses are the real heroes, while we ourselves are often childish and ignorant, and without this understanding, it is impossible to acquire even the most rudimentary knowledge. The masses have boundless creative power. They can organize themselves and concentrate on places and branches of work where they can give full play to their energy. They can concentrate on production in breadth and depth and create more and more undertakings for their own well-being. The present upsurge of the peasant movement is a colossal event. In a very short time, in China's central, southern, and northern provinces, several 100 million peasants will rise like a mighty storm, like a hurricane, a force so swift and violent that no power, however great, will be able to hold it back. They will smash all the trammels that bind them and rush forward along the road to liberation. They will sweep all imperialists, warlords, corrupt officials, local tyrants, and evil gentry into their graves. Every revolutionary party and every revolutionary comrade will be put to the test, to be accepted or rejected as they decide. There are three alternatives: to march at their head and lead them, to trail behind them, gesticulating and criticizing, or to stand in their way and oppose them. Every Chinese is free to choose, but events will force you to make the choice quickly. The high tide of social transformation in the countryside, the high tide of cooperation, has already reached some places and will soon sweep over the whole country. It is a vast socialist revolutionary movement involving a rural population of more than 500 million, and it has extremely great and worldwide significance. We should give this moment active, enthusiastic, and systematic leadership, and not drag it back by one means or another. Some errors are unavoidable in the process. This is understandable, and they will not be hard to correct. Shortcomings or mistakes found among the cadres and the peasants can be remedied or overcome, provided we give them positive help. The masses have a potentially inexhaustible enthusiasm for socialism. Those who can only follow the old routine in a revolutionary period are utterly incapable of seeing this enthusiasm. They are blind, and all is dark ahead of them. At times they go so far as to confound right and wrong, and turn things upside down. Haven't we come across enough persons of this type? Those who simply follow the old routine invariably underestimate the people's enthusiasm. Let something new appear, and they always disapprove and rush to oppose it. Afterwards, they have to admit defeat and do a little self-criticism. But the next time something new appears, they go through the same process all over again. This is their pattern of behavior in regard to anything and everything new. Such people are always passive, always fail to move forward at the critical moment, and always have to be given a shove in the back before they move a step. For over 20 years, our party has carried on mass work every day, and for the past dozen years it has talked about the mass line every day. We have always maintained that the revolution must rely on the masses of the people, on everybody's taking a hand, and have opposed relying merely on a few persons issuing orders. The mass line, however, is still not being thoroughly carried out in the work of some comrades. They still rely solely on a handful of people working in solitude. One reason is that whatever they do, they are always reluctant to explain it to the people they lead, and that they do not understand why or how to give play to the initiative and creative energy of those they lead. Subjectively, they too want everyone to take a hand in the work, but they do not let other people know what is to be done or how to do it. That being the case, how can everyone be expected to get moving, and how can anything be done well? To solve this problem, the basic thing is, of course, to carry out ideological education on the mass line, but at the same time we must teach these comrades many concrete methods of work. 24 years of experience tell us that the right task, policy, and style of work invariably conform with the demands of the masses at a given time and place, and invariably strengthen our ties with the masses, and the wrong task, policy, and style of work invariably disagree with the demands of the masses at a given time and place, and invariably alienate us from the masses. The reason why such evils as dogmatism, empiricism, commandism, tailism, sectarianism, bureaucracy, and an arrogant attitude in work are definitely harmful and intolerable, and why anyone suffering from these maladies must overcome them, is that they alienate us from the masses. To link oneself with the masses, one must act in accordance with the needs and wishes of the masses. All work done for the masses must start from their needs, and not from the desire of any individual, however well-intentioned. It often happens that objectively the masses need a certain change, but subjectively they are not yet conscious of the need, not yet willing or determined to make the change. In such cases, we should wait patiently. We should not make the change until, through our work, most of the masses have become conscious of the need and are willing and determined to carry it out. Otherwise, we shall isolate ourselves from the masses. Unless they are conscious and willing, any kind of work that requires their participation will turn out to be a mere formality and will fail. There are two principles here. One is the actual needs of the masses rather than what we fancy they need, and the other is the wishes of the masses, who must make up their own minds instead of our making up their minds for them. Our Congress should call upon the whole party to be vigilant and to see that no comrade at any post is divorced from the masses. It should teach every comrade to love the people and listen attentively to the voice of the masses, to identify himself with the masses wherever he goes, and, instead of standing above them, to immerse himself among them, and, according to their present level, to awaken them or raise their political consciousness, and help them gradually to organize themselves voluntarily, and to set going all essential struggles permitted by the internal and external circumstances of the given time and place. If we tried to go on the offensive when the masses are not yet awakened, that would be adventurism. If we insisted on leading the masses to do anything against their will, we would certainly fail. If we did not advance when the masses demand advance, that would be right opportunism. Commandism is wrong in any type of work, because in overstepping the level of political consciousness of the masses and violating the principle of voluntary mass action, it reflects the disease of impetuosity. Our comrades must not assume that everything they themselves understand is understood by the masses. Whether the masses understand it and are ready to take action can be discovered only by going into their midst and making investigations. If we do so, we can avoid commandism. Tailism in any type of work is also wrong, because in falling below the level of political consciousness of the masses and violating the principle of leading the masses forward, it reflects the disease of dilatoriness. Our comrades must not assume that the masses have no understanding of what they themselves do not yet understand. It often happens that the masses outstrip us and are eager to advance a step, and that nevertheless our comrades fail to act as leaders of the masses and tail behind certain backward elements, reflecting their views and moreover mistaking them for those of the broad masses. Take the ideas of the masses and concentrate them, then go to the masses, persevere in the ideas, and carry them through, so as to form correct ideas of leadership. Such is the basic method of leadership. In all the practical work of our party, all correct leadership is necessarily from the masses to the masses. This means, take the ideas of the masses, scattered and unsystematic ideas, and concentrate them. Through study, turn them into concentrated and systematic ideas. Then go to the masses and propagate and explain these ideas until the masses embrace them as their own. Hold fast to them and translate them into action, and test the correctness of these ideas in such action. Then once again concentrate ideas from the masses and once again go to the masses so that the ideas are persevered in and carried through. And so on over and over again in an endless spiral, with the ideas becoming more correct, more vital, and richer each time. Such is the Marxist theory of knowledge. We should go to the masses and learn from them, synthesize their experience into better, articulated principles and methods, then do propaganda among the masses, and call upon them to put these principles and methods into practice, so as to solve their problems and help them achieve liberation and happiness. There are people in our leading organs in some places who think that it is enough for the leaders alone to know the party's policies, and that there is no need to let the masses know them. This is one of the basic reasons why some of our work cannot be done well. In all mass movements, we must make a basic investigation and analysis of the number of active supporters, opponents, and neutrals, and must not decide problems subjectively and without basis. The masses in any given place are generally composed of three parts: the relatively active, the intermediate, and the relatively backward. The leaders must therefore be skilled in uniting the small number of active elements around the leadership, and must rely on them to raise the level of the intermediate elements and to win over the backward elements. To be good at translating the party's policy into action of the masses, to be good at getting not only the leading cadres, but also the broad masses to understand and master every movement and every struggle we launch, this is an art of Marxist-Leninist leadership. It is also the dividing line that determines whether or not we make mistakes in our work. However active the leading group may be, its activity will amount to fruitless effort by a handful of people unless combined with the activity of the masses. On the other hand, if the masses alone are active without a strong leading group to organize their activity properly, such activity cannot be sustained for long, or carried forward in the right direction, or raised to a high level. Production by the masses, the interests of the masses, the experiences and feelings of the masses. To these the leading cadres should pay constant attention. We should pay close attention to the well-being of the masses, from the problems of land and labor to those of fuel, rice, cooking oil, and salt. All such problems concerning the well-being of the masses should be placed on our agenda. We should discuss them, adopt and carry out decisions, and check up on the results. We should help the masses to realize that we represent their interests, that our lives are intimately bound up with theirs. We should help them to proceed from these things to an understanding of the higher tasks which we have put forward, the tasks of the Revolutionary War, so that they will support the revolution and spread it throughout the country, respond to our political appeals, and fight to the end for victory in the revolution. 12. Political work. The system of party representatives and of political departments, adopted for the first time in China, entirely changed the complexion of these armed forces. The Red Army, which was founded in 1927, and the Eighth Route Army of today have inherited this system and developed it. The People's Liberation Army has developed its vigorous revolutionary political work, which is an important factor in winning victory over the enemy, on the basis of a people's war, and of the principles of unity between army and people, of unity between commanders and fighters, and of disintegrating the enemy troops. This army has built up a system of political work which is essential for the people's war and is aimed at promoting unity in its own ranks, unity with the friendly armies, and unity with the people, and at disintegrating the enemy forces and ensuring victory in battle. Political work is the lifeblood of all economic work. This is particularly true at a time when the social and economic system is undergoing fundamental change. The party branch is organized on a company basis. This is an important reason why the Red Army has been able to carry on such arduous fighting without falling apart. The political work of the Eighth Route Army is guided by three basic principles. First, the principle of unity between officers and men, which means eradicating feudal practices in the army, prohibiting beating and abuse, building up a conscious discipline, and sharing weal and woe, as a result of which the entire army is closely united. Second, the principle of unity between the army and the people, which means maintaining a discipline that forbids the slightest violation of the people's interests, conducting propaganda among the masses, organizing and arming them, lightening their economic burdens, and suppressing the traitors and collaborators who do harm to the army and the people. As a result of which the army is closely united with the people and welcomed everywhere. Third, the principle of disintegrating the enemy troops and giving lenient treatment to prisoners of war. Our victory depends not only upon our military operations, but also upon the disintegration of the enemy troops. Our troops must observe the correct principles that govern relations between the army and the people, between the army and the government, between the army and the party, between officers and men, and between military work and political work, and relations among the cadres, and must never commit the errors of warlordism. Officers must cherish their men, and must not be indifferent to their well-being, or resort to corporal punishment. The army must cherish the people, and never encroach upon their interests. The army must respect the government, and the party, and never assert independence. Our policy towards prisoners captured from the Japanese, puppet, or anti-communist troops is to set them all free, except for those who have incurred the bitter hatred of the masses and must receive capital punishment, and whose death sentence has been approved by the higher authorities. Among the prisoners, those who were coerced into joining the reactionary forces, but who are more or less inclined towards the revolution, should be won over in large numbers to work for our army. The rest should be released, and, if they fight us and are captured again, should again be set free. We should not insult them, take away their personal effects, or try to exact recantations from them, but without exception should treat them sincerely and kindly. This should be our policy, however reactionary they may be. It is a very effective way of isolating the camp of reaction. Weapons are an important factor in war, but not the decisive factor. It is people, not things, that are decisive. The contest of strength is not only a contest of military and economic power, but also a contest of human power and morale. Military and economic power is necessarily wielded by the people. The atom bomb is a paper tiger which the U.S. reactionaries use to scare people. It looks terrible, but in fact it isn't. Of course, the atom bomb is a weapon of mass slaughter, but the outcome of a war is decided by the people, not by one or two new types of weapon. Soldiers are the foundation of an army. Unless they are imbued with a progressive political spirit, and unless such a spirit is fostered through progressive political work, it will be impossible to achieve genuine unity between officers and men, impossible to arouse their enthusiasm for the war of resistance to the full, and impossible to provide an excellent basis for the most effective use of all our technical equipment and tactics. The purely military viewpoint is very highly developed among a number of comrades in the Red Army. It manifests itself as follows. These comrades regard military affairs and politics as opposed to each other, and refuse to recognize that military affairs are only one means of accomplishing political tasks. Some even say, if you are good militarily, naturally you are good politically. If you are not good militarily, you cannot be any good politically. This is to go a step further and give military affairs a leading position over politics. Ideological education is the key link to be grasped in uniting the whole party for great political struggles. Unless this is done, the party cannot accomplish any of its tasks. Recently, there has been a falling off in ideological and political work among students and intellectuals, and some unhealthy tendencies have appeared. Some people seem to think that there is no longer any need to concern oneself with politics or with the future of the motherland and the ideals of mankind. It seems as if Marxism was once all the rage, but is currently not so much in fashion. To counter these tendencies, we must strengthen our ideological and political work. Both students and intellectuals should study hard. In addition to the study of their specialized subjects, they must make progress both ideologically and politically, which means that they should study Marxism, current events, and politics. Not to have a correct political point of view is like having no soul. All departments and organizations should shoulder their responsibilities in ideological and political work. This applies to the Communist Party, the Youth League, government departments in charge of this work, and especially to the heads of educational institutions and teachers. After receiving political education, the Red Army soldiers have all become class conscious and learned the essentials of distributing land, setting up political power, arming the workers and peasants, etc., and they all know they are fighting for themselves, for the working class and the peasantry. Hence they can endure the hardships of the bitter struggle without complaint. Each company, battalion, or regiment has its soldiers' committee, which represents the interests of the soldiers and carries on political and mass work. The correct unfolding of the movement for pouring out grievances, the wrongs done to the laboring people by the old society and by the reactionaries, and the three checkups on class origin, performance of duty, and will to fight, greatly heightened the political consciousness of commanders and fighters throughout the army in the fight for the emancipation of the exploited working masses, for nationwide land reform, and for the destruction of the common enemy of the people, the Chiang Kai-shek bandit gang. It also greatly strengthened the firm unity of all commanders and fighters under the leadership of the Communist Party. On this basis, the army achieved greater purity in its ranks, strengthened discipline, unfolded a mass movement for training, and further developed its political, economic, and military democracy in a completely well-led and orderly way. Thus, the army has become united as one man, with everybody contributing his ideas and his strength, an army fearless of sacrifice and capable of overcoming material difficulties, which displays mass heroism and daring in destroying the enemy. Such an army will be invincible. In the last few months, almost all the People's Liberation Army has made use of the intervals between battles for large-scale training and consolidation. This has been carried out in a fully guided, orderly, and democratic way. It has therefore aroused the revolutionary fervor of the great masses of commanders and fighters, enabled them clearly to comprehend the aim of the war, eliminated certain incorrect ideological tendencies and undesirable manifestations in the army, educated the cadres and fighters, and greatly enhanced the combat effectiveness of the army. From now on, we must continue to carry on this new type of ideological education movement in the army, a movement which has a democratic and mass character. The educational policy of the college, the anti-Japanese military and political college, is to cultivate a firm and correct political orientation, an industrious and simple style of work, and flexible strategy and tactics. These are the three essentials in the making of an anti-Japanese revolutionary soldier. It is in accordance with these essentials that the staff teach and the students study. Our nation has always had a traditional style of hard struggle, which we should develop. What is more, the Communist Party has always advocated a firm and correct political orientation. This orientation is inseparable from a style of hard struggle. Without a firm and correct political orientation, it is impossible to promote a style of hard struggle. Without the style of hard struggle, it is impossible to maintain a firm and correct political orientation. Be united, alert, earnest, and lively. What really counts in the world is conscientiousness, and the Communist Party is most particular about being conscientious. 13. Relations between officers and men. Our army has always had two policies. First, we must be ruthless to our enemies. We must overpower and annihilate them. Second, we must be kind to our own, to the people, to our comrades, and to our superiors and subordinates, and unite with them. We hail from all corners of the country, and have joined together for a common revolutionary objective. Our cadres must show concern for every soldier, and all people in the revolutionary ranks must care for each other, must love and help each other. A movement to support the cadres and cherish the soldiers should be launched in every army unit, calling on the cadres to cherish the soldiers, and the soldiers to support the cadres. They should speak up about each other's shortcomings and mistakes and quickly correct them. In this way, they will be able to achieve a very good internal unity. Many people think that it is wrong methods that make for strained relations between officers and men, and between the army and the people, but I always tell them that it is a question of basic attitude, or basic principle, of having respect for the soldiers and the people. It is from this attitude that the various policies, methods, and forms ensue. If we depart from this attitude, then the policies, methods, and forms will certainly be wrong, and the relations between officers and men, and between the army and the people, are bound to be unsatisfactory. Our three major principles for the Army's political work are, first, unity between officers and men, second, unity between the Army and the people, and third, the disintegration of the enemy forces. To apply these principles effectively, we must start with this basic attitude of respect for the soldiers and the people, and of respect for the human dignity of prisoners of war once they have laid down their arms. Those who take all this as a technical matter and not one of basic attitude are indeed wrong, and they should correct their view. Communists must use the democratic method of persuasion and education when working among the laboring people, and must on no account resort to commandism or coercion. The Chinese Communist Party faithfully adheres to this Marxist-Leninist principle. Our comrades must understand that ideological remolding involves long-term, patient, and painstaking work, and they must not attempt to change people's ideology, which has been shaped over decades of life, by giving a few lectures or by holding a few meetings. Persuasion, not compulsion, is the only way to convince them. Compulsion will never result in convincing them. To try to convince them by force simply won't work. This kind of method is permissible in dealing with the enemy, but absolutely impermissible in dealing with comrades or friends. We must make a distinction between the enemy and ourselves, and we must not adopt an antagonistic stand towards comrades and treat them as we would the enemy. In speaking up, one must have an ardent desire to protect the cause of the people and raise their political consciousness, and there must be no ridiculing or attacking in one's approach. 14. Relations between the army and the people. The army must become one with the people so that they see it as their own army. Such an army will be invincible. Every comrade must be helped to understand that as long as we rely on the people, believe firmly in the inexhaustible creative power of the masses, and hence trust and identify ourselves with them, we can surmount any difficulty, and no enemy can crush us, while we can crush any enemy. Wherever our comrades go, they must build good relations with the masses, be concerned for them, and help them overcome their difficulties. We must unite with the masses. The more of the masses we unite with, the better. The army and the liberated areas must support the government and cherish the people, while the democratic governments must lead the people in the work of supporting the army and giving preferential treatment to the families of soldiers fighting Japan. In this way, relations between the army and the people will become still better. In the army, the task of supporting the government and cherishing the people should be handled through the ideological education of every commander and fighter, so that they all thoroughly understand its importance. As long as the army on its part does this job well, the local government and the people will also improve their relations with the army. In the course of these campaigns, the army on its side and the party, and the government on theirs, should thoroughly examine the shortcomings and mistakes of 1943, and should resolutely correct them in 1944. From now on, such campaigns should be launched everywhere in the first month of every lunar year, and in the course of them the pledges to support the government and cherish the people, and support the army and give preferential treatment to the families of soldiers fighting Japan, should be read out time and again, and there should be repeated self-criticism before the masses of any high-handed behavior by the troops in the base areas towards the party or government personnel, or towards civilians, or of any lack of concern for the troops shown by the party or government personnel or the civilians. Each side criticizing itself and not the other, in order that these shortcomings and mistakes may be thoroughly corrected.